Hey, it's that time of the year again. It's New Year's. Exactly 1 year ago to the day, I uploaded World Update 5, a personal favorite episode of mine. But not just because of the Nether perimeter, but because that was honestly the first episode where I felt like I got the pacing down. Like, no single thing that I was talking about or showing dragged on for too long. Yeah, I'd honestly consider it like the first decent episode of World Update. Yeah. I think that's what I'd go with. I'm not gonna claim to be a pro at this YouTube stuff. But yeah. Something I wanted to cover that I didn't talk about last episode was that in episode 7, after I had done recording that, I actually went back to grab my 1.12 save that I just had pruned and updated to 1.14.4, so that way I can make a whole bunch of OP armor sets. And and when it comes down to diamond sets, I got 27 full diamond sets of OP armor. Yeah. It took a while to get the books together for that. And you may ask, why so many sets? Basically just to ensure I never run out of them. Because, you know, I do die very rarely in this world, and even when I do, 9 times out of 10, I can get my stuff back. But I don't really want to play the game worrying about losing the few armor sets that I can't possibly ever create again. So I figure, you know, 27 full diamond sets of OP armor, that should be absolutely perfect. Last episode, I made an ice farm. So you may be going, Duke, what are you doing with all that ice now? Now that you got an ice farm, what are you going to be doing with all that ice? What have you been doing with all that ice? And well, it's quite simple, you see. Actually, maybe I should just show you. The answer is right here. Or at least partially right here. This is a super long blue ice path. And this is where the majority of all my ice is going. You may be like, well, what is it for? Where does it go? More on that in a little bit. Here's my llama buddy. He's very helpful. He's actually kind of rare. He's a level 5 llama, meaning he has 15 inventory slots. Very useful for transporting materials a great distance and such. You got like a 0.3% chance of finding them in the wild. And so they're kind of hard to come by. Anyways, for this, I'm gonna pull up my coordinates. And to make them even easier to see, let's just maximize that UI scale. I also need to turn down my render distance. So 4 chunks should do. Details, it also helps to have fog off. So this should be good. And I'm going to bring a timer up on stream because we're going to be going on a little bit of a journey here. After 29 minutes of riding in a boat, we have gotten to the end, or the current end, of a new project of mine. So, how do I best put this? I'm going to the world border. I know that in past versions of the game, there has been bugs and stuff you could utilize in order to get to the world border quickly. But never before do I think I've ever seen someone in single player build infrastructure to get them to the world border repeatedly. When this is completed, this blue ice highway will go on for 3.75 million blocks. And will take you to that coordinate in the Nether, which is the equivalent to 30 million overworld, or the overworld world border. I've done the math, and my calculator says the same thing as yours. This is insane, and no one should ever attempt this. But I'm going to. This is going to be a long-term project. It's going to be one that I work on slowly in the background. And it's going to take years to complete, and I'm fine with that. As this world continues to grow and evolve, this path will slowly get longer and longer, going out farther and farther. Now you may look at this and think into that I didn't think any of this through when starting this project, but actually I did. Yes guys, I recognize my ice farm currently isn't adequate. Yes, I'm gonna have to address that in future. It's just to get me started, okay? But when it comes down to building this thing, that's probably the easiest part. It only took about 10 hours of gameplay to build this thing out to 125,000, or the equivalent of 1 million overworld. How I managed to build it at such speed is really quite simple. The player can only move so fast, so I decided to do my building on a horse. And I did a lot of searching throughout the overworld to try and find the fastest possible horse I possibly could. And guys, I won the lottery on this one. This horse can travel at 13.8 blocks per second. 13.8! It is the fastest horse I've ever found in survival Minecraft. Like, I haven't calculated the odds on this thing, but it has to be in the range of like 1 in 100,000. It's just an absolute god tier horse. And while it only has 10 hearts, it is quite a jumper. I just sealed 4 blocks with this thing. Like, I still can't believe I have this horse. Now, the process of building this is really quite simple. So I'd grab my materials, and typically I'd line up my view, that way I don't have to like constantly correct back and forth as I move forward. But anyways, I'd line up my view, and I got the Tweakeroo Mod installed. And that allows me to assign a hotkey to spam right click whenever I hold down my mouse button. So I'll just hold down my mouse button, run forward, and this allows me to build this path very, very quickly. The overworld at 1,000,000 blocks out is what you'd expect it to be. This one happens to be in the middle of a jungle. It's actually a rather large jungle, but there isn't really anything out here that's worth noting. I mean, in that direction there is like a shattered savanna biome, but that's about it. I haven't built any monuments out here yet, and I do plan on building like monuments for each of the milestones and such that I build out the Blue Ice Highway. Alright, now for the reason you clicked on this video. My brand new, wirelessly controlled Shulker hostile mob switch. And what better place to demonstrate it than 1,000,000 blocks away from home? So, if we take a look at the mob cap in the tab screen, we can see we have 143 hostile mobs. 142 of those are Shulkers. And in order to toggle my end of mob switch wherever I am, all I need is a portal. So we'll go ahead and enter here. Get out, and immediately exit the Nether again. Now, we just gotta wait about 15 seconds. And the mob switch will be deactivated. And there you go. It's deactivated. We now have mobs spawning in the area. 1,000,000 blocks away from home, and I can still control my mob switch. Now, how about we head back home so we can take a closer look at that mob switch. Here we are at my spawn chunks, and over here, the location of my brand new Shulker mob switch. Let's go ahead and get some air here, and get a nice bird's eye view of it. Yeah, had to terraform a lot of terrain to go for the look I wanted to. When you look at it like this, it almost looks like a heart. That was not intentional. Like, my base shape was like a half circle for this. It just so happened to look like that. And that over there looks like a hardcore heart. That was also not intentional. It just so happened to turn out like that. These redstone lamps right here and to indicate whether or not my Shulker mob switch is turned on or off. Right now it's turned off. And I got these buttons here, so if I happen to be in the area, rather than having to use the portal method, I can just press a button. And I get this really nice animation followed with some note block sounds there. And same if I turn it back off. As stated earlier, this mob switch is using 142 Shulkers. That is enough for 2 players. So I could be in the world doing something, and then maybe I have a second account, or I'm using a carpet mod bot, and I can still keep the world completely peaceful and free of hostile mobs. And the switch itself works like any other shulker mob switch. When we want to turn it on, we move the shulkers inside spawn chunks. When we want to turn it off, we move them outside of it. Now, how about we head downstairs? In case you were wondering why I went for 142 shulkers when I only needed 141 in order to cover 2 players worth of mob caps, it basically just comes down to symmetry. And down here is the note blocks and for the powering up and powering down sequence, and all the redstone to turn on and turn off the redstone lamps and get that cool animation I showed you out there. This is by no means super compact. It's just purely functional, and yeah, it works. It's alright. Redstone and for controlling this switch wirelessly can be found even further down below. So if we go all the way down here, I have built a completely custom cave. There was nothing but solid stone here originally, as you saw in the time lapse. And over here, I have a dimension detector. It is this dimension detector that I use to wirelessly toggle my mob switch by exiting the overworld via a portal and re-entering it very quickly. Now, I could sit here and badly explain this to you, but instead I'm going to refer you to Ilmango's video on unlimited wireless redstone using wolves. I highly recommend watching it if you haven't already. Now, if you have seen Ilmango's video, then you probably noticed here that I'm using 2 wolves rather than 1. The reason for that is I had a night where I AFK'd at my ice farm and I had just 1 wolf in here. And when I came back, my mob switch was turned off. And I was just like, wait a minute, I thought I left that on. So I loaded up into a backup I literally took right before I started the AFK session, and sure enough, my mob switch was left on. It seems like every so often these dogs will just stop jumping up and down for a bit. You can see like they do it sometimes, but generally they're jumping up and down constantly. Anyways, my theory is that the dogs stop jumping up and down for a few seconds, long enough to activate the dimension detector falsely and toggle my mob switch off. So in order to mitigate this issue, I am just using 2 wolves, as the chances of both of them choosing not to jump up and down at the same time is basically 0. Now, I have discovered there is an issue with this dimension detector. When you enter the Nether, your dog sits down. As it should be, that's how it functions, it's all based on that. But if you save and quit, then load up your world again, enter the overworld, your dog won't stand back up like it's supposed to. It will remain sitting, and you'll have to come over here and tell your dog to stand back up. I haven't looked on the bug tracker to see if this is something that's already been reported or not. My guess is it's so obscure, probably not. And even still, I'm gonna place my bets that Mojang wouldn't even consider this a bug. I mean, like, you know, this little piece of, you know, behavior for wolves. So, yeah, keep in mind, if you're going to use a dimension detector, be wary about logging out in the Nether because it will break it. The purpose for these portals is really quite simple, chunk loading. We are at the edge of spawn chunks, since that's typically where you build your shulker mob switch. And in order to toggle it remotely, we need to be able to load the chunks that it's in fully remotely. For reference, this is on the edge of entity processing chunks for spawn. We go 1 chunk farther, it's non-entity processing, so only like redstone gets processed here. And even farther, this is a RAM loaded chunk, nothing gets processed here at all. All that happens is the hostile monsters that are within it are counted towards the mob cap. When the dimension detector goes off, it sends an item into this portal, which is picked up in the Nether and sent through another portal that exits here. From here, we detect the item and go ahead and send a redstone pulse over here, up this torch tower, and to toggle the mob switch. Simultaneously, since the item came through this portal, it loads the chunks around this portal, allowing the entire Shulker mob switch to be within entity processing chunks so the Shulkers can be moved back and forth. The item is then sent back down this dropper line, so that way it can be reused and recycled the next time the dimension detector gets activated. Down here in this cave, there is also 2 little secret areas you can find. Or I guess they're not really all that secret since you solve them in the time-lapse. But anyways, the first one over here is just a... Let's see, I gotta get in here. It's just a nice little mini lava lake, little lava pond really, with a whole bunch of diamonds and lapis around. And on the opposite side over here, we have this flowing water, which as a player, you can swim in and fit through this one high gap. And it opens up into this little underwater end of water cave, which you can keep on swimming through until you get to this underground house. There you have it, guys. Who needs a cave update when you can make one yourself? And I got so much more stuff I'd love to talk about this episode, but unfortunately we're out of time. So until next time, whenever that might be, I'll see you all later. Bye, and Happy New Year's.